And welcome to the Creative Community Podcast presented by Destination Arate. I'm David.
And I'm Mark. As brothers, we grew up telling stories together for over 15 years. And as adults, we want to continue telling stories together, and we want to invite you into our Brothers Brain Trust.
Yeah, we started the podcast to share the beginning of our story, the stories that influenced us, the media that we consumed. And then we started the podcast, secondly, as a way to continue writing our story and writing it together as we work towards becoming storytellers in the long run.
Yeah, and our goal is to build a community of people who work together to find creative solutions to tell those inspirational stories and ideas that we have. And today we're going to do a creative writing exercise.
Yeah, if you guys heard the last episode that we did a creative exercise in was what could go wrong. We thought up these scenarios, we put these characters in these scenarios, and then we said, what could go wrong? Some of the things were funny, some of them were sad, some of them were serious, some of them were not. You got ants in your pants and all those sorts of things. So today, Mark, this is inspired by one of our favorite podcasters. We have this idea called half-baked stories or half-baked story ideas. And so what's going to happen is Mark and I have 2 or 3 or 4 stories, depending on how long-winded we get. And we're going to present them to each other, and we're going to decide, is this half-baked idea, is this the beginning of an idea? Is this the end of a story? Is this the middle of a story? We need to put something on either side of it. And we'll just figure that out as we go along. And Mark, I found, before we get into this, I found that I had a bunch of story beginnings, and maybe 1 in 5 of the stories that I found had an ending to it, like was a complete beginning to ending story. And maybe the other 4 were just kind of the beginning or the beginning in the middle, and little things like that. Did you have anything that you noticed while you were going through your story ideas?
Yeah, I noticed I had a lot of the similar things. I had a lot of like one sentence world building type concepts where it was just some little thing that kind of got me interested. And you'll see that I'll present one of them to you after we get going. But that I think are pretty cool. They're just little thoughts, kind of like shower thoughts that are like, oh man, what if that? And they're either ideas that I just haven't gone back to flesh out. I did have ideas that I did flesh out, but I did find what you said to be true as well in mine. Lots of starts, but I will say in my note that I keep all my stories in, I went through a phase where I went through and I just like wrote the ending like sentence of a bunch of my stories simply to get myself over the hump, because I really liked that they were like this like deep, like I got to the climax and I was like, I like it right here. I'm just gonna let it sit right here. And it's like, no, you have to get that denouement. You have to let the story resolve. And so I pushed myself to do that. But a lot of them are not. I didn't write down the actual ending. I just wrote down what the character learns in the story.
Okay.
And so, but that was my one way of trying to get over that hump. But that is still unsuccessful because all those, stories are still in that note unfinished. So.
I got you. Yeah, I found the same thing. Lots of 3-sentence Word docs on Google that are just kind of hanging there like, oh, this was a cool idea. And I remember what I was thinking when I wrote it down. Some cool stuff I discovered, Mark, 10 episodes of a TV show that maybe I brainstormed at one time. 10 episodes of another TV show that we brainstormed at one time. And then some fun ideas, an entire short story that I realized I need to just clean up and publish.
Cool.
Which maybe I'll share that one. Maybe that'll be one of the ones I share, because it's either a short story or it's something. It's the front, the middle, or the back of something. So let's just get into it. Why don't we just get into it? Do you want to go first, or you want me to bring some to the table here? I've got a couple pulled up.
Yeah, I can start with something.
All right, hit me with it.
Yeah. So I want to write a story about a guy who comes in last in his fantasy football league. And sometimes when guys do fantasy football, there's like a punishment if you come in last. So his punishment is that he has to wear a sandwich board sign outside of a major sporting event that says the apocalypse is coming, everybody run, and he has to act like a crazy person for the duration of the game. Well, during the game, the apocalypse actually does happen, like a major catastrophe happens, and the government brings him in to interrogate him as to how he knew this event was going to take place. And that's all the story that I have. That's the premise of the story. And I think it could be fun. I think there's a lot there. So what do you think of the idea? I feel like it's pretty half-baked.
Well, first of all, I mean, I can write it for you as the person who came in last in their fantasy football this year. So I can't say that I was necessarily, I was kind of trying to do poorly so I would get better draft picks in the following year, but I still didn't even.
You tanked your fantasy.
I did.
Draft.
I traded my best 2 players for draft picks, and anyways, it didn't turn out as well as I had hoped, and it's going very poorly here in the off season. But neither here nor there. I'm just not a strategic person, Mark. I think this is honestly the middle of a story, or it's right at the beginning of the middle. So you could introduce the character, his friend group. You could introduce them coming up with this idea of him wearing the sandwich board, or maybe you could say, hey guys, someone says we have to wear this, and it could be like the chat is going crazy. Someone said, and it's like at the beginning of the season, they're trying to decide, because usually that's how fantasy football leagues work. You decide what the loser's punishment is going to be beforehand, so that everybody knows what they're trying to avoid throughout the season. So so that way there would be record somewhere of someone coming up with this idea, and that's what the government tries to get out of him. Like, he's like, I don't know, one of my friends said it, so I have to track down all his friends. But then they would show his team doing poorly and him dreading it, and then someone's like, hey, I'll buy the tickets for you for the game. All you got to do is make the board and wear it. So I mean, that's a good 20 minutes of a movie or something.
Yeah. What if I want to yes Andrew here. What if it's the first episode of a 10-episode mini series? So because you could have the lead up and all that, but at the end of each episode you see a ship hovering over Earth or something. There's it's like a normal kind of rom-com, not rom-com, sorry.
Sitcom.
It's like a normal sitcom situation. But you're like, why is it a mini series? So what's going to happen? And then in episode 2 ends with him at the game, kind of thing.
Yeah, you could end episode 1 not revealing what's happening, just him with the sandwich board and the wind blowing and leaves and the sky is really dark and it just cuts to black.
Yes, yeah.
And then that way episode 2 starts with the apocalypse, and maybe episode 2 ends with him being grabbed by the police. Like episode 2 is just him surviving whatever catastrophe is happening, and his friends texting him and him, using the board to save his own life or something. Yeah. And then he gets grabbed by the police at the end of episode 2, and then it goes into the Stranger Things style mystery of I like it. So I guess this is kind of, I've got a scale where I've got front, middle, and end. It kind of falls right here between front and middle, right?
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you.
So what's this story called? Do you have a title for it yet?
My first thought is just calling it Punishment or something like that, or or Losers.
Yeah. Something about Catastrophe Bowl or something like that.
Yes,
because it's like a bowl game or something,
right?
With football. So yeah, okay. Well, we'll get there with that one. I like that. All right. Is it my turn?
Yes, it is. I can't wait.
Okay, so this is a fragment of a very old story that I wrote when I was very young. And I'll just tell you the fragment and you can help me decide where it goes in the timeline. But Billy trips the man, his name is Arnold, as Arnold is leaving the baseball card shop, causing Arnold to fall on the ground and spill the contents of his briefcase everywhere, revealing lots of baseball cards that are the same as the card he just sold to Mr. Judge, who owns the baseball shop. Arnold claimed that the card was one of a kind, but it was actually a fake. Billy didn't trust Arnold during the conversation, tripped him on purpose. And for some reason, this is just important information you need to know, Mr. Judge, the owner of the baseball card shop, is blind. So Billy is 13 or 14 or 12. So in my mind, it's a little bit of a Sandlot type vibe with a young kid, baseball cards. Mr. Judge owns the shop. Why he is blind, I do not know. I just remember that is what the story started out with, introducing this character, opening his shop, going through all of these rituals, and you find out through the story that he can't see. So
yeah, man, that is really a cool idea. One of my favorite things about it is like the idea of a blind baseball card shop owner.
Right.
Like that's so cool. Because he would know the cards by feel.
Right.
And he would listen to baseball on the radio. Like, I don't know. It's
Yes,
just,
he would
there's just
listen to baseball on the radio. That is one of
yeah.
the reasons I wrote it like that. And he would know what type of paper it was
Mm-hmm.
because he could touch it and he could tell how old the paper was by touching it,
Yeah.
or smelling it, you know.
Okay. Well, sorry. I'll stop world building and
Yeah.
actually decide. Okay. So I feel like this has the potential to be toward the end. I think it would be really interesting as an inciting incident, you know, as something where like, because say like the guy that he trips gets away, you know, and then the story could be about them hunting him down, or I could see it being like, you know, he trips him and big Albert or whoever, you know, but I think Albert's actually one of the characters in your story. Sorry.
Arnold.
Arnold. Yeah. So like, you know, Big Dave is there and he like, you know, stops him and they call the police or something like that. So I could see it being either, but
yeah. Well, this is obviously written back in the 60s and 70s and 80s when baseball cards are kind of a boom, or maybe even early 90s, right? Like back when kids would still quote ride their bikes down the street, and you know, cities were a little smaller, and once again, more of a summertime movie. Ride your bike to the baseball card shop, hang out with Mr. Judge, listen to the day game on the radio, talk about stats. So that's why I don't know if maybe they discover that these are fake baseball cards and they have to like kind of like track down everyone they've sold the cards to, because Mr. Arnold's been supplying them for a while, and somehow he was sneaking them past Mr. Judge, because this could also be an inciting moment for Mr. Judge to think maybe I need to like quit my job, you know, or I'm losing my touch or something.
Need to retire.
Billy, yeah. So it would be like Billy kind of convincing him to keep working. I don't know. So I see what you're saying. It has the potential to be both. I'm kind of thinking of it more as the noble thing Billy does at the beginning to kind of like get people on his side, and Mr. Judge helps him, like, you know, maybe violence isn't the answer. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
It does feel like the classic ending of kind of like a real life adventure tape, where it's like that's the kind of heroic thing at the end that he does.
Which is why I was trying to avoid that, because I don't want there to be like this tidy bow. But at the same time, it would be a good, like, yeah.
But if that's what it's meant to be, like if that's what this story, you know, not every story is, you know, Inception. So it could be that this is what that is. So I would probably file it closer toward the end, like on your scale. So
okay. Yeah, and I was gonna call it something like Stealing Signs, or
oh, that's great.
You know, or Stealing Home or something like that. Or the Trick Play. I don't know, something with baseball and chicanery and trickery and sort of things. So, all right, cool. How we doing? You want to do another one?
Yeah, I can do one.
All right.
Okay, so this one I don't quite know where it goes, but I think I just have the phrase written: a first place trophy sits on a shelf above a sleeping man, and the award is for napping. So he has won an award for napping.
And he is napping. Huh. Boy, this could be anything.
Yeah.
This could be the end of
it's still the dough. Like it's not even.
Yeah, this could be a closing scene.
Yeah.
He's taking a nap and his award sits on the shelf above him. He's finally won.
Mm-hmm.
This could be the opening scene. We find out why he's such a champion napper.
Yeah. I don't know. Just the idea of writing a story about someone who is an award-winning sleeper, I really want to write that story someday.
Yeah. Yeah, because he could have some old trophies in the, like, from his younger days when he was a kidnapper.
I don't think that's a plot twist. That's a plot twist. And do they have award ceremonies for that sort of thing? What sort of
Well,
twisted
that would be it. He
society.
can't display those trophies because they say award-winning kidnapper.
Okay.
So as he's dating
Oh,
and bringing
he's not
people home,
kidnapping children.
he's a kid. He
He's
was
not.
a kidnapper.
Oh, okay. He napped as a kid. That's
Yeah.
funny. Okay. Sorry. I was like, what kind of sick, twisted society is a
It was a
group of
pun,
kids?
Mark. It
Yeah.
was a
Okay. I
pun.
get it. All right. Yeah. So he has
Because
yeah,
he can't keep those awards out, like award-winning
in public.
kidnapper. The girls
Yeah.
that he brings home for dinner or whatever be like, what?
Yeah.
Like freaked out. So, and here
That's
he is
great.
trying to like, and this is like his best thing is like, I am an award-winning napper. So he can't find anyone to fall in love with him because what a kind of like, no one's going to believe that's a real talent or be
Right.
impressed by it or anything.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And he's at his most like intellectually accomplished while sleeping. So he's
Right.
not a great conversationalist. Like,
Yeah.
you know, okay.
And he comes out of his naps with really like he gets a bunch of work done.
Oh yeah.
But when he
Well,
goes in for a job and he says, I need to take a nap, then they fire him.
yeah. Well, that was my thing, was maybe it's the ending of a story. And in the beginning, he has all these awards for his work.
Oh.
And like he has to learn to slow down. Like he's a really like type A driven. And so like maybe his therapist or something challenges him. Like he gives him this like thing and he's like, I want you to train for this competition. And he's like, this is a napping competition. He's like, right. But I think you could be the best in the world. Like, and he uses his competitive drive to teach himself to slow down. And I don't know, could be interesting. So
It's called Sleeping Giant.
Yeah.
Or
Sleeping in Seattle. It's just
okay. I do think it's the end of a story.
Okay.
Well, let's put a definite. We haven't done that yet. I don't think we've done a definite yet, but that's definitely the end of a story. I guess we did it with your first one. The last one we left a little more nebulous, but yeah. Do you have a better title than Sleeping Giant? Or
I'm going with Sleeping in Seattle personally.
Sleeping
That's
in Seattle. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. This is the one like yours, Mark. Here, I've got one for you. Maybe we'll do three more, one more from each of us after this one. It's just a sentence, and I'll read it. Surrender your tears to the cry collector. He sails alone on the sea of sorrows, and he saves your tears for the next time your soul needs watering.
That's really good. I feel like that's also Doe. Like that's also
Is it the beginning? Is it like the first sentence of a book?
I feel like it is, yeah. I'm open to discussion, but that is a great like first sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then we have this, description of the Sea of Sorrows and description of this man sailing alone with a jar, collecting tears. How do they get to the Sea of Sorrows? He has to go to all these tributary points where they enter the sea, or they fall down.
Right.
And then what does he do with them, and how does he get them back to you?
Is it a story about the tear collector? Because I'm thinking like Legend. I don't know if you ever saw that movie, DreamWorks movie, like Rise of the Guardians, where it's about like Jack Frost and the fairy, Tooth Fairy, and all them. Like, is it a story kind of like that, where we're going behind the scenes and we're watching the inner workings of the tear collector's life, or is he like, this is a bad example, but like that like thing that rows your boat to Hades in Greek mythology?
Yeah.
Like, he's just like a gondolier kind of person.
Yeah, kind of like that Red Skull guy guiding people to the Soul Stone.
Right.
In Marvel. That's a good question. Yeah, because if it wasn't about him, then that's the first sentence of the book, but it's just setting the stage for this is going to be a sad story.
Right. Yeah, and it's going to be about someone who needs that, or who
needs to cry, maybe who refuses to cry, maybe.
Oh, that could be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And the cry collector could come visit them. Maybe that's the whole point of the story, is that the cry collector has to leave the Sea of Sorrows, and they're used to being on a boat and they're not used to traveling via land. So this is definitely the beginning of the story, I think we've established.
Yeah, I think it would be really cool to like have I would love to explore the idea of, is his name the Cry Collector? Okay, I would love to explore the idea of the Cry Collector and like hit the inner workings of his life. Like, does he get sad? What does he do? Like when he gets sad, how does he deal with that? Right. Kind of almost a story about someone who's like really great at giving you advice, but their life is a mess, you know? Like it could be about him where like he collects your, but he has very like he would have a conversation with people and he wouldn't know how to emote like the proper,
Mm.
he would always give off the improper tone or something, you know, like
Yeah,
he
yeah.
makes a
Okay.
great he makes a great like shadowy hooded figure, but if you get to know him, he's like it's like Bruno in Encanto, where like
Okay.
you know when he's a shadow, you're like, oh my goodness, it's him, you know, like it's so sad and melancholy. But then you meet him and he's like this goofball, superstitious kind of guy,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. Okay, cool. All right, we want to do one more each. How's that sound?
Yeah, that's fine with me. So mine is I want to write a story, and in some way has to do with this. So there are loggers, like loggers, but they cut down wind turbines in the future to harvest the metal out of them.
Wow. And that's it? That's what
Hmm.
you got?
That's what I got.
How would that let's stretch ourselves for a second and ask how that would be the end of a story.
To me, that would be the end of a story. In like, there would be people who would maybe worship them or not want the wind turbines to come down because they represented something in the past, but they need the metal. Like the people need the metal. So like it would be these people who are maybe they're like they're old, like their family lineage is metal collectors, you know, but since harvesting metal has been outlawed, they've been forced to take up other professions, but they're known as the loggers. Maybe that's even like their last name or something. And I could see them like coming together like ants out of a forest, you know, like at the very end they all walk out with their big, you know, sharp like axes and stuff, and they're finally back to work, like they've fought this whole time to resecure their vocational identity.
Okay, so I'm going to go with it as the middle of a story, and it's this group of people who can take one down silently in the middle of the night without anybody knowing,
Oh,
which
cool.
is takes so much skill because they're huge.
Hmm.
They're out in this open field, but because there's no light pollution, you know, like it's easier to, I don't know, but like just imagine like this stealth group of metal workers with these, they've got these like what are those welding torches and
Hmm.
things that cut metal really well, like trying to keep those, like how would they devise these tools that don't show that fire and stay
Hmm.
enough fuel, like, but they can take one of those down in like 6 hours, and they start at midnight, and by 6 a.m there's just a missing wind turbine.
Yeah.
And then like the police have to be on the lookout for like metal that's coming from weird places, and you know, like that's
Yeah.
sorry, my brain's going everywhere.
Oh, that'd be really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely like 1,000 years in the future type of story.
Right. That's what I mean. Like, what if we got to the point where wind turbines were trees, basically?
Yeah.
So that would be really cool. Um, and I could see them like if they're a covert group, you know, um, that would make a great middle where like that's what they're doing. Um, and then I don't know if the ending would be them like going public, them winning. Maybe they're like they're a menace. They're like bad, you know. They're like pillaging and they're like scrappers and stuff. And the detective is trying to find them, like the futuristic detective.
Or they're the good guys, and like at the end of the story, um they're just silently off into the night once again, you know, like.
Hmm. Yeah, something about this feels like it would be a good short story. Like it would be a nice little, like, just I think the story of them taking one down over the under the cover of night, and maybe something almost going wrong or something like that. But like we wouldn't need a lot. It would just be this little sci-fi, like just little taste, like a little short essay.
Yeah, yeah, I like it. What's the title?
Metal Men, um,
The Metal Forest,
yeah, the Metal
or
Forest,
the Iron Loggers,
the Iron
um
Loggers, yeah.
or the Steel, you know, something like that.
Mhm. Ooh, just
uh
steal.
yeah, Steel.
Because they it's a pun. They steal
There
the.
we go. Steel,
That's it.
steel, steel,
Mhm.
stealing steel,
Yeah,
steel, the Steel Stealers. No.
steal Steelers.
Okay, I'm getting too far into it. I like that one. I like Steel.
Okay.
That's a cool. Let's put a little pin in that one.
All
We'll
right.
come
All right.
back to that
I'll
one.
put a
We'll
pin in
see
that
how
one.
that
Yeah.
goes. All right.
All right. Finish this out. What do you got?
Okay.
I'm
This
excited.
last one, um, it's it's just a sentence and then a title.
Okay.
So it's a delivery service for people who break up and need to return stuff that belongs to the other person. And it's called Expedited Returns, and the E and the X are capitalized.
Yes. Love it.
Expedited Returns. So this one is probably a movie or a TV show or a series of books where, you know, you have different couriers who end up meeting their soulmate because they're taking a box of stuff back, or maybe they don't meet their soulmate. They just have to return the weirdest stuff, like a goldfish tank, you know, like a big aquarium, or a mattress, or a tree, like someone left a tree and a potted plant in someone's apartment. They got to get this. And then you break up with someone, you move states, and then you have to get all their stuff back to them. And now you've got to, the expedited return people got to figure out all the logistics of a truck and trying to load and then they've got to figure out, I've thought about this too much. They've got to figure out the liability, because if the person who got mad at their ex broke all the stuff, but then Expedited Returns has to take it back, then that person that's receiving it might charge so they've got to figure out how to get people to sign these waivers, and they end up doing like relationship counseling. Like it would end up being one of those like psychiatrist type shows where they're sitting there listening to the person complain and like asking questions, and they end up helping them work through it, and then maybe they help the other person work through it because they have information for, whatever. So it would end up being like, and then there would be like the one character that they're always returning stuff for because she broke up with someone again, or he broke up with someone again, can't stay in a relationship. And like, oh, it's only an envelope this time. Okay, cool. It's not going to be as much. So I don't know. That's a really fleshed out idea in my mind. Obviously, I don't know where you think this idea is. This a beginning of an idea, an end of an idea? Is it just an entire idea? Maybe it's not even half baked. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Something like kind of like you did with mine, like playing with it. What if it was the end of an idea? Like it could be like a guy just keeps getting broken up with, and so he like starts a business out of it, and realizes like, oh, like I could do this, for a living. But he, falls in love with one of the drivers or one of the girls that he returns things to, like she's like, yeah, I was, this was his or something or that, and then like they get to talking and he's like, oh yeah, they hit it off. I don't know. I've never seen a rom-com work with a weird entrepreneurial idea. Like maybe I just don't watch enough of those, but like I feel like it could work, but I don't know if it's too many things. Like if it's like this either needs to be, like a clever business idea, or
I think it could probably be like a Parks and Rec where there are relationships that happen in the show along the way. Like there are some main characters who work for this company, 2 or 3 main characters. There's all the side cameos and random one-off characters. There's the repeat characters. And then, the 3 main characters have relationships either with one another or with other people along the way. And so
it would be really great. It would be a great opportunity as a TV show to bring guests on to be the breakup-ees, like the people who are there. Like it would be a great guest cameo like opportunity. So I think this is honestly just a premise. Like it's way over here where it's just like this is a premise of an idea.
Okay, so it's not even like the middle or the end or anything. Okay, cool. All right, so let's just recap for our listeners. We had what was it, the Apocalypse Bowl or the Catastrophe Bowl, where a man wears a signboard outside of a game and it says the end is coming or the end is near, and then the apocalypse actually happens. That's pretty good. And then we had Billy and the baseball card owner, Mr. Judge, who's blind, and they have this mystery they have to solve with the fake baseball cards. And then I didn't write down your second idea, Mark. It was about
that's fine. It was about a person who has a first place trophy for napping.
That's right. The napper. Man, what would you? Oh yeah, sleeping in Seattle. That's right.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of something like sleeping in or overslept or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay, that's a good one. And then we had the Cry Collector, which is an idea I've been kicking around a lot of places for a long time. Who knows where that will come from? And then we had the people harvesting wind turbines called Steel, which is a great idea that we'll have to come back to. And then we had Expedited Returns, where people return items to the person's ex after a breakup, and have all sorts of adventures along the way. So this was fun, Mark.
Yeah.
This gives me a lot of confidence that it's okay to have an idea if I don't know like where it's going or where it came from. Does that make sense? Like a lot of
Yes.
times you get an idea and you're like, oh, I don't know where that's going to go. Oh, well, and you kind of just write it down and forget about it. But I think the one thing I'm learning is that it's okay just to write down a sentence about my idea, because I can just come back to it like this and see where it goes.
Yeah, I really think it is really cool to be able to have the freedom to just write down ideas that come to your head and not worry about if they're perfect. It's okay if they're half baked, they can turn into something, and not everything has to be that $1 million idea. Some ideas are just really fun and can be used for something like a podcast episode with your brother. That is really, really cool. And who knows, in 20 years, one of these half baked ideas might be something really meaningful. Who knows? So.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So in the meantime, you out there listening in listener land can subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Amazon Podcasts, for more writing exercises like this one. And then we also have interviews with incredible artists and incredible storytellers. So leave us a comment or a review. And if you're on YouTube or if you're on social media, give us one of your half-baked ideas. If you've got a half-baked story sitting out there or just a sentence, write it down, see if we can maybe send you some feedback on it. We'd love to do that with you. That helps the algorithm know that you enjoyed what we're doing, but it also helps us know what's in your minds and what stories you're trying to tell.
Yeah, and one of the ways that you can reach out to us to send us your half-baked ideas is you can connect with us through Facebook and Instagram, and that will be Destination Arete, Arete. And so if you follow us on those platforms, then you'll get not only the opportunity to interact with us, but you'll get like stuff in your feed about future episodes, as well as if we announce like any upcoming community activities or Arete projects. So that's a great way to kind of connect with us if you're interested in saying, man, I really enjoyed that. I really want to know kind of more of what these guys are about. That's a great way to kind of just keep us bookmarked and in your feed on a regular basis. And then this is kind of the next level, but if you want to be the first to hear about upcoming interviews, sneak peeks of future content, or exciting announcements, go to destinationarete.com/contact or send an email to destinationarete@gmail.com. And that you can, if you do that, you can subscribe to our newsletter. Just type us an email, let us know, hey, I'd like to get subscribed to the newsletter. The newsletter is the best way. I was talking with a friend recently, and like a lot of times social media platforms will shift and change, but a newsletter is a great way if you're really interested in keeping us up with us in our content. Even if we get on a new platform, or like Facebook randomly shuts down, then we'll still be able to reach out to you to be able to say, hey, this is the content that we're producing and here's how you can access it. So we really appreciate you guys. We really appreciate interacting with you on these platforms and through the newsletter. So we will be back in 2 weeks, either with another interview or with another creative exercise. So we'll see you then.